The Storm, there's plenty to talk about with this team, guys. We have a bunch of mid-range options. It sounds like both of them probably confirmed to start on the edge with Katoa and Lioro there. And a bunch of sort of cheapies in there. Joe Chan, we've got some top guns in Harry Grant, Munster and the like there. So plenty to talk about in this team, Scoop. Let's start it off with the beginning of their season. They have a bye in round 9. Talk to me about what you see in their first 8 rounds.
Yeah, the Storm's early run is actually a little bit underappreciated. It's actually pretty good. Games against the Eels, Bulldogs, Titans, Tigers to start. Guys like Harry Grant could get off to a flyer. And I think it'll be really good for getting some of those cheap guys up in price quickly and potentially be able to sell them before that round 9 bye. So I don't mind loading up on a couple of Storm players, particularly if you think you can flick them. And there's quite a lot of options to go through, actually.
Yeah, with a few injuries as well to start this season off. There's one of the guys, Georgie Jennings, I was interested in. Looks like he'll be out for the first 3 or 4 weeks. So potentially some options on either wing, which we'll get into a little bit later in the video. We'll go down the line, guys, with Grant Anderson. Looks like he's potentially a chance to play that center role with Olam out. So, guys, just Justin Olam is out for looks like probably the first, 5 or 6 weeks? Is that right? 4 or 5 weeks?
Yeah, he broke his forearm. I think he's out at least 6 weeks. And whether that's 6 weeks of the season and 6 weeks of the preseason and only 4 rounds, doesn't matter. It might be Grant Anderson. It might be young Tunamapia. Yep. I think Seve has some knee cartilage issues, so that's why he's not in the running at the moment. But he probably comes in as first choice backup a little bit after.
Yeah, it sounds like we've probably got at least a month for a lot of these options, right? Is Grant Anderson or Tunamapia an option for you?
Tunamapia might come in pretty cheap. I don't think he's been added to the game yet, but he was $299K when he last played, so I'd say he'd be pretty cheap anyway. I'd be looking at him if he was cheap. Otherwise, probably looking to some of the other center options which have popped up in this second trials team lists.
Yeah, there's definitely some interesting cheapies. There's no one really that stands out in any team, right, as like a must-have sort of cash cow, but hopefully a bunch of them can do a job at least. There's no Harry Grants of yesteryear playing with the Tigers scoring 60. But yeah, we'll definitely find some good ones there. So Grant Anderson, bit of a no just at the price at $338.
Yeah, I think so. When you've got your Talaus, Smith Shields, Alamottis all 100K cheaper than that, you can just go to the next person.
Yeah, awesome. Nelson, what are your thoughts on him at the moment? Is he going to play any edge, do you reckon, or is it just mainly going to be that middle sort of 50-minute role?
I think it was really good for the Storm at the back end of last year, and it shocked a few clubs, and that's why it worked. I don't think they'll do it full time, and I think Ryan Hinchcliffe confirmed in a radio interview just the other day that Katoa and Loiero have won those 2 spots, and Sims, when he comes back, will probably be either lock or bench. So I don't think Nelson will be on the edge at all this year, and he'll just go back to what he did before.
They probably need some of that more middle coverage, don't they? With obviously Kingy in there, there's probably a good chance why Simsy will play there as well. So Nelson, let's avoid him then if he's just clearly in the middle, because on that edge, he played some bigger minutes and was obviously destructive as well. Joe Chan's one of those cheaper guys that comes over. He has a little bit of pedigree there. He looks very exciting at $230K. Are we just waiting for him to get a start as a player in our side? Or on the bench, could he have some value too?
Yeah, we were basically waiting for 2 out of those 4 options to start at edge. We were looking at Joe Chan, Eliesa Katoa, Trent Loiero, or Jack Howarth to be awesome cows if they start at the edge. And at this stage, it looks like Chan's going to miss out. As a bench edge, there's a chance he might get a little bit because if one doesn't play at 80, I'd expect it to be Katoa. He comes across from the Warriors, needs to prove himself a little bit, and did play that sort of 50, 60-minute role at times. I don't think a bench edge is someone you'd want to look for. I'd want to wait for him to start if you're going to pick him up.
Yeah, it's very fair. And it looks like Jack Howarth has completely missed being in contention, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because he's supposedly on this massive contract and really highly rated, but we just haven't seen him yet. So I don't know whether he's under an injury cloud or what's going on, but maybe one for later this year.
Yeah, really unfortunate. It's weird. We would have liked him with all these center injuries and stuff like that. You think he'd be a chance, but no. Xavier Coates, he didn't score very well last year in a good team. The team probably isn't as good this year, so let's avoid him completely. Tom Eisenhuth, he's actually a strangely interesting one, but priced very awkwardly. probably going to play most of his time in the middle. He is named at 13 this week, right?
Yeah, he is a little bit interesting, but I do think that Sims will come back and take a lot of the points away from him. So he might make a tiny bit of cash, but at nearly 400k, I mean, Loera is cheaper than him and will definitely score a lot better. So there's no real reason to buy him.
Yeah. Harry Grant, is he on your side at the moment?
He was in all season until about last week when I just wanted some extra cash. So I've gone down to Robson, but if this second trial with the new 10 meter behind the line rule, the hookers really benefit from that, especially the running ones. And if Grant is just carving, I might be too scared to leave him out of my team, honestly. I think he can average Cook levels last year and go about 65, honestly.
Yeah, it's a good point, but I suppose it's going to be how or which hooker really benefits from that straight away and they take on the line a bit more, because some will really go for it and some will just play their normal game. So it'll be interesting to see how Harry plays that. Yeah, it's a great watch for this week's trials. This video is going to come out just before, so a lot of these guys we're looking at for these trials as potential picks in our sides, guys. Just be aware of that. We've got Jordan Grant, which we'll avoid at this stage. Doesn't look like he's anywhere close to contention. Jerome Hughes is someone that has done really well for us a couple of years ago. In amongst that, he's sort of a just under 50 type of scorer. Do we see him bouncing back and improving or holding similar?
I will be watching him a little bit in these trials because 2021, when teams had a lot of space, could run a lot, he was dangerous. But in 2022, he came back to the pack a lot. Munster does a lot more of the attack and running the team as a 5'8" than most other 5'8s do. So Hughes' ceiling is capped a little bit, but if the game is a little bit faster, maybe halfway in between 2022 and 2021 with this new rule, I think hookers will mostly benefit, but I will be watching Jerome Hughes because he is more relevant when he is running more.
Yeah, and carried a bit of an injury last year with the calf for a lot of it, so potentially affected his running. So let's see how he's in this trial as well. Ieremia, we've got him priced up for some silly reason as well, 22.3. Looks like he's not in contention at the moment either, right? So really, is he going to be able to score very well? Not anything crazy, probably no value on there, so let's leave him out. George Jennings we'll have to look at a little bit later in the season. He probably might be a mid-season cash cow or something like that if he comes back well. We've got Tui Kamakamika there. Is he just too awkwardly priced as well at that 40?
Yeah, well, he's probably going to float between starting prop and bench prop half the year. And yeah, no real value, already priced at about 40 points.
Yeah. And have you got Katoa on your side at the moment?
Yep, locked in both Storm edges. I think it's hard to say must-have, but if those two were to be classified as must-have, I wouldn't stop you. Like, they're two of the best, safest cash cows by the looks of it this year. And I mean, if you can fit both in with the huge number of value edges around that 400, 500k mark, I'd really like that. It's just whether you can fit both. I currently do.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. They're just cheap enough, aren't they? Under 450 for both of them. And Katoa, are you fine with him playing sort of 50 to 60 minutes? If it is that, there is obviously upside if he plays more minutes, but 50 to 60 is fine for you?
Yeah, he's a more explosive type of player than Loero, so I don't know if he needs 80. I reckon the Storm are going to do something a little bit like the Eels did with IPAP, take a Warriors player that's shown a bit of promise and turn him into a superstar. If he gets 80, he could be a keeper. If he doesn't get 80, well, he'll probably still be a good cash cow.
Even on the weekend, we saw it didn't run the ball a lot. Obviously, they weren't set up completely, but his tackling was solid. He only made, 27 tackles for 2 misses, so you'll take that. He only played half the game. So, was that correct? About half?
Yeah, I think so. Most of the teams sort of pulled off their stars after the tough. Not exactly sure for the Storm game, but yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I tried to watch a bunch of them, but so we got him there, and then Lioro. So yeah, both cheap enough that you can fit both of them in. I think that'd be fine if you've got that question on your lips, guys. I've had a few people ask me about Josh King at 500k. Average 35, the PPM's not good enough for him to have much potential improvement, I'd say. He already played big minutes last year. Do you see the same thing, Locke?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, I don't think he'll play bigger minutes than last year, especially with Welsh back. But he did look really impressive in that first trial. I'll be watching him in the second trial, but there's too many guys with way safer upside and this just might be a flash in the pan. We know in every season in trials, there's always somebody who absolutely brains it in the trials that comes out and doesn't really do what they're expected to. And Josh King's probably one of those type of guys.
Yeah, and he's not a 350k, so yeah, that's that. We got guys like McDonald and Tepai Moroa as potential sort of middle guys that could do a job at some point, but really we're avoiding Moroa, for example. He was 250 last year, just didn't really play a lot, and McDonald a bit too expensive, right?
Yes, I think they're a little too low in the pecking order to really go for.
Yeah, and Nick Meaney, looks like we're going to just came out with some news. 6 to 8 weeks is what Pap is looking at. Is that enough to give Meaney a little bit of value, considering he's sort of a mid-40s type of scorer at fullback?
It's pretty close. I think if it was if we knew that he was coming up after the Storm's bye in round 10, 8 weeks might be enough, but 6 to 8 weeks is tough. So he does score better at fullback. I think he's got about 44, 45 average there. And with the full preseason, maybe he'll score a bit better. The interest is Meaney had an interesting role last year. Munster would play fullback in defense and 5/8 in attack. And in those last 4 games, Meaney was getting like 17, 18, 20 tackles type of thing. So it'll be really interesting to see how much it helps his base. I don't think it helps his attack much, but his base will be pretty high for an outside back. So definite watch to see what happens. I think he'll just play a standard fullback role, training there the whole preseason. But yeah, he's not the worst option.
Yeah, you'd expect just to be solid, right? We got Cam Munster, who has the osteopubis at the moment. He reckons he's lost a little bit of his spark. So is he someone that's just probably a little bit too expensive? We're just under a small injury cloud. Like, he'll play, but will he be at his best? Sounds like he played with it a bit last year too.
Yeah, well, if he played with it last year, imagine what he'll do without it. But yeah, I think
right.
You probably just avoid him. Almost 900k. That's really close to somebody like your Cam Murray, and I think that you just have got to go a little bit down to guys like Dewey, Hastings, Burton instead, especially with that injury news. If he was playing fullback, where he was scoring well last year instead of an interesting hybrid role with an injury, I'd be more interested. But yeah, just go a little bit down or up to Cleary and Hines.
Yeah, very fair. We got injuries to Olam and Pap. They'll be out for a while, but yeah, Pap's obviously a decent option at some point in the year if he gets back to full health. But yeah, no point talking about him now. Aaron Penne, another one of those middle guys that, yeah, they've got a bunch of them, but who of them is going to play big minutes? It's really going to be Tui, Nelson, and Josh King really is going to be their 3. So I'd be avoiding all these types of guys unless they get to basement with sort of 30, 40 minutes. We've got Seve, who plays really well, right? Averages 39 when he gets his chance, but he's out for sort of the first month or so, it sounds, as well. We'll avoid him. Tarek Sims, people have been talking about him, but he's not going to start and potentially will play a middle role. And then you've got some interesting ones down here. Guys, I'm semi-interested, especially Warbrick, but we'll start with Remus Smith. Your thoughts on him? Unfortunately, priced up at 26 a little bit.
Yeah, if he'd been 24, I would have been pretty interested. He's got some pedigree in 2021. He did quite well, but he needs to score a lot of tries to be relevant. This early Storm draw is decent, but I don't think it's quite enough. I think he'll probably float around that mid-400s by the end of it, but not quite be the cash cow you're looking for, especially coming off that second pec injury. It just doesn't give me a whole world of confidence.
Yeah, and there's some cheaper guys available at center at the moment, right? We didn't get to speak about him in our videos, but obviously, yeah, Smith Shields, for example, is super cheap and he has some decent scores. Alamotti has come into contention as well. People looking at Hammer. We've got Isaac Thompson. So there's other guys that are cheaper that could probably score the same, make a bit more money. We got Warbrick. So I have some interest in him. What are your thoughts on him to start off? Yeah, the base that you spoke about in Q Cup for 22 is really nice for an average of 37 at wing. We saw on the weekend he did score a try. It was a bit of a nothing. It was a rebound off a player. He just picked it up and scored. And other than that, he did score close to 30 in that base, which was really nice. So 5 tackles, 0 misses was nice. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, he looked pretty solid in the trial. I think he's at base price. He's one of the safer wingers that you can probably go for. He's an interesting one because you can probably loop him due to his really early matchup and potentially with somebody like Sloan who has the first bye. You can potentially loop somebody like him and Perham. I'd probably say Perham would be the one you'd want unless the Storm do a job on a fresh and understrength para. now that they've lost a few guys. But yeah, just want to slot in your emergencies at 230k. I think I really like him.
Yeah, he's in my team at the moment. That's a really good thought, mate. In terms of that, you can have a few of these wing fullback, center, dual type of players and then loop them in for that first game. If you're trying to go a bit cheaper, if you're going more expensive, you're going to bank on those guys. But if you're playing a bunch of these 230, 250 type of players, you can try and sneak a 30 or a 40 out of them and not be too far behind the pack. So it's probably something I'll think about doing as well. So thanks for that. We got Christian Welch here, being priced up, unfortunately, as well at 44.6. He was someone that was an option for us a couple of years ago when he was at that 500k-ish mark, made us about 100 or so and did his job. But this year at 638, you've got him down as a trap.
Yeah, 2.5 points added to his price. This will be the first time that he's played under the new offloads rule, apart from that half a game that he had and got injured last year with that Achilles rupture. Now, that mostly affects outside backs and their explosiveness more, so it won't affect his running, tackling hard so much to have him at 100%. And plus that 2.5 points up, I just think he isn't going to be that 10 points. He might be 5, but not much more than that, really.
Yeah, awesome. And the last one there, Tyron Wishart, a guy that people had in their teams last year, and he just never really got a role. Like sometimes he play bench, sometimes he play a bit hooker for 20 minutes. Just avoid him like the plague. And guys, just to finish off this video, we've got the private group, which is heating up and about to announce the prizes for our overall competition, which is going to be great. There's not a lot of people in there at the moment eligible for prizes, so you'd be silly not to be in there. Scoop delivers plenty of value along with myself. We're going to be doing lives after team lists there. So plenty of deep dive value on all the guys you should be plugging into your sides, not only for round 1, but for each and every week. All the deep dives are going to be in that private group. So you want to get in there and get all the goss. But thank you very much, guys. That is the Storm preview, and we'll be on to the Titans next.